Rex, what is your first takeaway from Lions 49ers?
The Lions just have to look themselves in the mirror and say, why'd we lose this game? We gave it to them. They absolutely gifted this game. And it drives me crazy because I'm going to say something. They had the best offensive game plan of anybody of any game this year. They were bludgeoning this football team. And quite honestly, right before half, if Jahmyr Gibbs doesn't slip, they go up 3 scores on the screen. That's a touchdown. If Goff doesn't, miss it too on the same drive, it's a touchdown. Yeah. However, at the end, okay, people are going to point to Dan Campbell about, he shouldn't have gone for this. Yeah, that's because we have hindsight. I know what he's trying to do. He's trying to knock this team out, okay, and he doesn't. But are we going to sit back and look? We get a chance to intercept the ball. The young man, I got to say something. This kid was on the street in week 10.
Yeah. And he's starting.
All right. Not one time did they talk about 2 backups playing guard, backups playing corners or whatever. They never talked about it. But the kid, unfortunately, drops an interception and Ayuk makes an unbelievable catch there.
Right.
And then they go back, turn around. The kid, he makes a mistake. Gibbs has fumbled 1 ball all season. He comes in, goes the wrong way, a mental mistake, fumbles the ball or whatever. Now all of a sudden the game's tied.
Yeah.
And momentum just flipped like crazy. But to me, Dan Campbell, who was consistent?
Yeah.
Dan Campbell was consistent.
The third quarter choked him out. Like the third quarter choked Detroit out. All right, so let's address the decision making. 100% right decisions by Dan Campbell. I think anybody that disagrees doesn't understand the Lions this year. Okay, not only is it the right thing about who they are, but who they were playing and how they were playing. This isn't just an analytics thing. They've won 4 or 5 games this year by Dan Campbell doing just that. Now, I think this is what happens when you look at those 4th down decisions and to go for it or not. 3rd down matters a lot in this conversation. This is the 3rd down. They motion the tight end over. They've got Amon-Ra St. Brown at the backfield. They're going to run on the nickel. This is a great play design. Watch Fred Warner. They get the 4th down because Fred Warner makes an unbelievable freaking play. If not, that play might score, let alone get the 1st down. Then it goes to 4th down. We could sit here and say bad decision, or we could sit here and say drop. Which one is more likely? That 20 times out of 24 times they've gone for it on 4th and 3 this year and got it, that it doesn't matter? So this is the 3rd down before. They're going to bring cover 88. RC, you know this one. They're going to bring the backside backer, drop the defensive end, play cover 2 front side. It's a great call because they're throwing that out route to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Let's credit San Francisco. Make the tackle.
Tackles.
Okay? Yeah, make the tackle. 3rd and 10 goes to 4th and 3. Then they go to 4th and 3. Arik Armstead. Now watch Armstead in the middle of the pocket. Okay? This matters. If you don't get that internal pressure, 2-man game in the middle of the pocket, bottom of the screen, we got a big in route coming. Fred Warner takes that over route. That in route at the bottom of the screen is going to be wide open. But instead, Jared Goff has to leave the pocket and no one's open. So the plays are there to be made. It's just a reality that 3rd down, San Francisco made them. There's a drop, and then 4th down, Armstead makes a play. The decision was the right decision. It's been who they have been all year. They were dominating the game. You got to credit San Francisco for making them, and Detroit had the drop.
Yeah, can I just say one thing about that last down? The only time Detroit never knew what defense San Francisco was in
was that play.
Was on that play, Greeny, because before that, Dano, they showed man coverage.
Right.
They had the back outside. He motions back in the backfield. They're showing man coverage. They actually played zone.
Right.
And imagine that. They finally were creative. That took it off. Now, all of a sudden, the decision, oh, shoot. And that's why they know they can go for it on 4th down, because they know exactly.
They've been great at it all year.
Defense
the bottom line is, man, you win these games, right? People, you don't have to sit back, or you can't sit back and wait for good football teams to lose championship games. And to me, that's what Dan Campbell wanted to do. I would have an issue with Dan Campbell if we go for the field goal there, right, and we miss the field goal, and I'm Jared Goff, I'm Amon-Ra St. Brown, I'm one of those guys on defense, Aiden Hutchinson, because I'm going to ask him, Coach, why are you switching up on me? Right. You've been consistent not only this year, since you got here. When we were 0-3, or when we only won 3 games in the first year, you believed in us. When we started off 1-6 last year, you believed in us. And now all of a sudden, with all of the cards on the table, you are going to change who you are to be, right? You're going to change from being the guy that went for 3 consecutive 2-point conversions, even though we knew, the world knew that that you shouldn't have been going for him. Because what it did was, when we got the 3rd seed, when we did have home field, we beat the Los Angeles Rams. And it swung back around to us, and we beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So why in the hell would we not believe that if we go for it on 4th and 3 in the 3rd quarter, on 4th and 3 in the 4th quarter, that we aren't going to get one? Because we always get one. When you look at this team, they were prepared to win this game. They didn't make plays. It's not only that drop for Reynolds. What about the 3rd down drop?
On the crosser.
On the crosser. There are so many plays that should have been made in the second half by the Detroit Lions that just weren't. Sometimes it's about the guys executing the positions you put them in, and the Detroit Lions did not do that.
That's 100% so good.
It's missed opportunities.
And missed opportunities all over the place. MOBP, missed opportunity for a big play by the young DB, goes off his hands in his face mask. Who saw that coming? The kid had amazing coverage, all right, and then gives it up. And then the drop on 3rd down by Josh Reynolds is great. The other thing, what happened to the great punt? They had a great punt. They can down that on the 1-yard line. They don't get it. So the opportunities were there. And you're right. Everybody's going to point to the Neanderthal coach again. BS.
I don't think
they're there because of that damn guy.
And I don't think the decisions, everyone gets wrapped up in like the analytics and everyone wants to blame analytics when these things happen. I honestly don't believe a lot of this is an analytics thing. I believe it's an identity thing for Dan Campbell. RC, I think your point of like, this is what he started to do when they weren't a good football team, and in part of the reason why they became a good
football team.
And also, the way the game was going, they were dominating the football game. It was they've gone for it on 4th and 3 or less 25 times this year. They've converted on 20 of them.
Right. When you give up the field goal early in the second half, when you allow them to drive after the fourth down stop, you're letting a team who believes they're supposed to be in the Super Bowl, who believes they're the best team in football, hang around. And what they're saying, what I would be saying if I'm down at halftime in the divisional playoff game, 21-7 to the Baltimore Ravens. If I'm down in the Super Bowl, whatever we were down to the Green Bay Packers, what I'm saying, what Coach Tomlin is saying when we walk off the field, what Kyle Shanahan is saying, is we have been here. They have not. And because they haven't been here, if it gets tight, other things on them will tighten. And when they do, that's when we make plays, and that's what the San Francisco 49ers
so look,
did.
You don't lose a game that you lead 24-7 without contributing to that. So clearly, they made a variety of mistakes. The Josh Reynolds drops. Jared Goff has 2 touchdowns that he misses in the game, 1 in the first half, 1 on the pass to Laporta in the second half. Those are things that happen in a game. The first 4th down, I have no issue with him going for.
The 4th and 2 drop?
That was completely in character with what they do. It's one thing to be in character. It's another thing also not to take into account the circumstances of a game. Personally, I think he should have kicked the field goal the second time to tie it, but I even understand that. But there is absolutely, this is the second one here. They're on the 30-yard line.
Greeny, on this one real quick, okay? Here's the reality. You're down 3, okay? If you don't get this, mindset-wise, I think there's like 6 or 7 minutes left in the game. Mindset-wise, you sit there and say, if we don't get this and they go down and get 3, we still have the chance to go win the football game. I think that's Dan Campbell's mindset, is at least our defense. Now, they didn't. San Francisco goes down and scores, but that's kind of what the philosophy is in those moments.
And so that's fine. I get it. I would have done it the other way. The analytics actually say it was a toss-up. There was no lean one way or the other. But let me tell you, with 1 minute and 5 seconds left in the game, Dan Campbell made one of the worst coaching decisions I've ever seen a person make, and I'm watching the sport 50 years. 1:05 left to play in the game. You have all 3 of your timeouts, and you're on the 1-yard line. Running the ball there is inexcusable. There is no excuse for it. You leave yourself in a situation now where you need an onside kick no matter what, in a league where the onside kick has become impossible to recover. I don't care what anybody says. You can go for it all the 4th downs you want. Running the ball there was inexcusable.
Right, and also, too, though, we've given a lot of credit to offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. Do you think Dan Campbell's in his ear telling him don't run the football?
I hope so.
And when you look
why would anyone have to tell you that?
Because the other piece is this, like when you look at this team, they scored that way. You said it yourself. There were 3 touchdowns in the first half scored running the football. And the first thing I'm saying, if I'm the San Francisco 49ers, is play action pass. Why? Because that's what everybody expects you to do. I'm not saying I'm not saying it's the right call. I'm not saying that it's the smart call in the moment. What I'm saying is sometimes smart coaches make decisions on things that are extremely valid that just don't work.
Greeny, again, I'm going to disagree with you.
Oh, my God.
Greeny, I've watched this team on 4th down when, like, timeouts weren't even an option and the clock was going to be an issue. Run the football in. Here's the reality. The nickel, I think Brown and Fred Warner make that play.
Right.
The play before they try to throw the ball, San Francisco's in coverage, and it's a dead play. I don't think that, like, watch, you got to credit defenders at some point. If Jamison Williams comes down and cracks that nickel, Montgomery's going to walk in, but Fred Warner's then allowed to bounce over the top, and it's a tackle for loss. Yes, you got to call the timeout there, and I know, again.
And it ends the game. The timeout.
No, it doesn't,
yes, it does. If you don't get the onside kick, they can now kneel the game out, which is what they did.
They didn't get the onside kick, though, Greeny.
But you're never going to get an onside kick in the NFL anymore. You cannot play for an onside kick in pro football since they changed that rule.
So you think that because they don't get, or they run the ball there and they don't get it, that the Lions,
they have to call a timeout.
Greeny, they're going to get the ball back. They're going to get the ball back. They have to go to distance with like
50 seconds left.
No,
Greeny.
not that much.
Hey, Greeny.
What are you talking about?
They got a 7-yard run on
5 seconds left.
San Francisco got like a 7-yard run on 1st down.
What? I mean, you're going to have to stop them one way or the other.
Dan, you know what really happened?
What?
Right? There was a kid that had an opportunity to step up down 17. And Brock Purdy understood that the magnifying glass was on him.
Sure.
And when the magnifying glass is on you, right, when the lights come on at the club at 2 a.m., all of your imperfections show. The people who are the most confident are the ones who are the most self-aware.
Yeah.
Brock Purdy was self-aware in the second half. Brock Purdy was 13 for 16, 174 yards. He rushed for 49 yards. Going into the Super Bowl now, he's accounted for 74% of the San Francisco 49ers offense.
Yeah.
You know who's closest to him? Patrick Mahomes, the person that he's playing. Brock Purdy said to himself, I'm going to revert back to what I know. And what I know is if he's open, I can hit him. What I know is if it's not open, my legs can get me a first down. What I also know is I know where everybody on this field is going to be. I know that my skilled players can make plays. The things that will echo in the eternity of football is what you do at this time of the year.
Yeah.
How you stack up against the best in the world. And to me, I looked at him and I said, you execute well within this offense. What did you do without Deebo Samuel? What did you do against the #1 defense? What did you do in the first playoff game? He couldn't have been in a worse position that he made the best position for a proving ground of why he's the franchise quarterback. He did every single thing you have to do to win a championship football game. And for all that Dan Campbell did, for all that the Detroit Lions did, if this kid doesn't step up and be the absolute best player in Santa Clara yesterday, we aren't having this discussion anyway.
Yeah, and he'll never get credit. And here's the great thing, and that's why I remember when I said early in the season, he reminded me of somebody. All right, well, look at him now. Is that not what somebody else would do back in the day, Joe Montana? Yeah. The same thing. Look, what did he do last week? Last week, San Francisco were 0-30 when trailing by a touchdown or more in the fourth quarter. Yeah. It brings some back wins. This kid here was at his absolute best in crunch time. He does it over and over and over again. And by the way, you know why Jared Goff is not elite? Because of mobility.
Yeah.
Sure.
This kid's mobility won that game. And that's what I think it's underrated thing that he does. And that's something that was always important. Bill Walsh always said mobility is one of the biggest things a quarterback can have. He uses legs to win games.
Yeah, watching him in the second half yesterday made me think of Joe Burrow's Super Bowl run. Mm-hmm. Just when you had to go use your legs, it wasn't just, like for me, the mobility. It was the mobility when it comes to the instincts and reactions. The mobility when you get out of trouble, 2 hands are on the ball. The mobility when you're getting taken to the ground and your eyes stay downfield and you find a throw. That reminded me of Joe Burrow. And it's not flashy and it's not sexy, but there's so much substance to it. It was spectacular. I thought he was clutch, and I thought he was a difference maker in the second half specifically.
To me, it was above just being timely. It was above just being clutch. It was taking what the defense gave you, and when they didn't give it to you, you took more.
Yeah.
I thought that Brock Purdy
Playmaker.
showed exactly what you have to show to not only make the people around you confident in you, but to be confident in yourself. He had to prove that. And I think you go back to 6 for 7 on that game-winning drive against the Green Bay Packers, and that carries over to that moment where he jogs into halftime knowing he had what it took.
Yeah, that
All right, we're going to leave it. I got to leave it there for the moment.